Each chart is only recreated every 26,000 years, so that your chart is absolutely particular to you. And the most important thing that an astrologer can do in a reading for you is to explain your ascendant, meaning the time that you were born, the degree in the first house is the most vital part of the chart. And in order for you to feel energized and have influence and be able to really experience what the soul desires, you must know the ruler, the planetary ruler, or the luminary that is the ruler of your ascendant, and then act on that steersman of the ship. For your soul has chosen a very particular path, and it has to do with the ascendant and the ruler of that ascendant. So what I've chosen is a Cancer ascendant, because the Cancer ascendant needs emotional security. And it gets that emotional security, that nurturance, the comfort, the feelings, the compassion for, kind of a mothering energy from the steersman, which is the moon, is the ruler of Cancer. And what sign the moon is found in. Now, because Cancer is so emotionally sensitive, it's very important to know where is the moon acting in the natal agreement. So I'm going to show you some chart positions. So the Cancer ascendant is the first house. It's a water sign, feminine. And let's look, for example, that the moon is in Virgo in the third house. The moon, which is the ruler of Cancer, in Virgo, earth sign, details, needs to have precise order, meticulous details. Everything has to be organized. And in the third house, it has to be organized around the communication that one makes, the relationship to the siblings, and the study that a person does. So in this case, this person with moon in the third house is going to have a very close relationship to the sibling. Now, that relationship may be very detail-oriented, which may drive the sibling nuts. But for this person, they will want details. And if the sibling is not giving those details, they may have problems with their sibling for their entire life. They may use their influence of the moon in the third house to be a teacher of some kind. The third house is study. So it may be like a high school science teacher, because Virgo will want the details. And the communication will be incredibly precise about those details because it's the third house. This person may also order their local environment, because the third house is like your local environment, in a very precise way, so that their actual environment may have a very precise laid out plan. The lawn may be mowed, the trees always trimmed, the shoveling always done correctly. So the environment, it may be that their desk is incredibly neat, that everything has a certain place and things are well ordered. The shadow of this is that they think that those details should be true for everyone, but it's only true for them. So know your ascendant and where the ruler sits. And if you're trying to enforce that organization and those details on everyone else's life, realize that it's only your life that is steering the ship that way. Okay? Still, the emotional security comes through those details. And the emotional security comes through the relationship with the sibling. It comes through that early education, like a high school science teacher, where they can really order the details and get everyone ready for a regents exam. And it may be their local environment, like the street that they live on, their driveway, the sidewalk up to the house is all very well ordered. Now let's look at the moon in the 6th house. The moon in the 6th house, still we need emotional security. It's in fire sign, Sagittarius. So the moon in Sagittarius needs adventures. The emotional security comes through adventures. So still very feminine, compassionate, mothering energy, but the life is steered through the Sagittarius health, higher ideals. The Sagittarius need to be out in nature, take walks. The health and healing, because the content of the 6th house is around health and healing, is done through the Sagittarius journeys, taking trips. And it might be that those trips are both Sagittarian in nature, but also have water energy behind them, because the Cancer ascendant loves to take a kayak out on the lake. Their healing comes from, because it's the 6th house, that's health and healing, also pets and service. But the moon there might love to take a trip and stay in a house in the Adirondacks where they can take an adventure as a hike, but they can also go out in a kayak and paddle for a long time to clear their mind. So you see how different those moon positions are and how they will steer the life. Now let's look at the 3rd. The 3rd is in the 11th house of friends and larger community, like a more global network. And the moon in Taurus still needs emotional security, emotional safety, compassion, empathy, some mothering energy. Now the moon in Taurus is exalted, so this person had a very strong mother themselves, someone who was grounded in reality, Earth, Taurus. This person needs sensual experiences with friends. So this person may like to, well, I'm going to think of a particular person that I know, may need to go out with friends and have sensual experiences like shopping for beautiful clothes and beautiful food, bringing home plates and different table adornments and table mats and silverware that will make the Taurus home look very sensual. They might like to eat food, so they might go out to dinner with friends as often as possible. Now, with the moon in the 11th house, let's look at how it would work when it's in a lockdown situation and the moon really needs to go out there and socialize in the 11th house and talk to people. Maybe they go to the thrift store and have a conversation is just as important as buying some beautiful clothes. In that case, that person in a lockdown situation, which is restricting the ability to go out, can really start to suffer the inability for the steersman of the ship to get out there and have those kind of experiences. So in that case, from an astrological perspective, that person's vitality and life force, which is found in the 1st house, may suffer, and that person may be then more susceptible to a virus. And I know this person, so I know that that is actually what happened. So she got very upset that she was not able to go out and see her friends and socialize and talk to people and have dinner with people and go to a restaurant. That's all that 11th house sensual experiences. And then she did get COVID. So the COVID virus affected her 1st house vitality. So in that case, for someone who has an 11th house moon, they need to figure out other ways to network with friends. And if they're not really good at, getting on Skype or having a FaceTime conversation, then they need to pick up the phone and call someone and talk to people and do what they can to keep their vitality going. Now, in this case, this person, mostly she started to communicate and cooperate with her butterflies and her hummingbirds, which were right outside her window. And so her only social interaction was the nature in her yard. And that kept her going right through the virus. She survived the virus, and her friends, the 11th house, were like the hummingbirds. So look for places that are still Taurian, sensual, feminine earth of those hummingbirds. She hung out the hummingbird feeder. She was able to interact with those every single day and watch them and get on the phone and talk to her friends around what her hummingbirds were doing. But very interesting, of these 3 different moon positions, because that person had moon in the 11th house, the lockdown really affected their first house vitality. So that's how it works. If you're not able to do what the steersman of your ship wants you to do, then you lose your first house life force vitality. So let's just go back through these. So if this person was not able to go on adventures and get a cabin in the Adirondacks and go paddling, they may have also gotten sick because the steersman of the ship would not be able to accomplish those Sagittarius journeys, those adventures in nature that Sagittarius needs so much. So that's how the vitality of the first house would fail. In this case, if this person's organization and details were affected in some way, and the life force was everything was anarchy and chaos and disruptions and the ruination of their perfect meticulous life, say that their sibling got dementia and they couldn't communicate with that sibling anymore and the sibling didn't make sense to them anymore, that would affect this person's life force and vitality. And in that case, they may be susceptible to a bacterial infection or some kind of first house body influenced problem. Isn't that interesting? So the life force all comes from the first house. So you should definitely know your first house. And then how is the ruler working? Now let's just pretend that the moon is in the 7th house. And because Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Athena, Chariklo, and the asteroid Wuhan are all traveling through Capricorn, say that the partner, say the moon in the 7th house, was affected terribly. They lost their job, they got depressed, and the partner started to distance themselves from the native of the chart. If the moon is here and the partner starts to break down and the relationship fails, then the life force of that person will also dwindle. So it's really amazing how important the steersman of your ship is, and that you keep that steersman going really strongly, the best that you can. And if life circumstances, inhibit the steersman of your ship, just realize that you want to do whatever you can to figure out a different way to help the steersman steer. Now, all charts have either a planet or a luminary ruling the ascendant. And then depending on what aspect it's making to the ascendant is also how strong it is. So by sign and by house is what we just did. Let's just quickly do by aspect. So this moon aspects the ascendant by a sextile, which is with grace and ease. This completion of the details happen. So this is a very fortunate position with grace and ease. Now, with so much grace and ease, the details might be a little bit obsessive compulsive, and this person can get like, only the blue towel goes there and the green towel goes there, and never mix the blue towel's position with the green towel's position. So the sextile makes it like easy to be super organized, almost obsessive around the details. Whereas the relationship to the sixth house is not a geometric configuration to the first house, which is why the sixth house is around health and healing. So this house does not have a geometric aspect. So this person has to work very hard to make it conscious all the time, to get out there and take a walk or go paddling or have an adventure or take a trip. All of those Sagittarius freedom-loving, horseback riding adventures. But again, because it's Cancer, they might be water adventures, walking along the beach or listening to a stream. So this does not configure. So this person actually has to work harder around making the health conscious. Whereas this is also a sextile, and that moon position is easy, like the talking to friends and going out and seeing friends and community may happen so much that other things in the chart start to suffer. So then you have to realize that the sextile may be a little bit too much, and don't socialize so much, because then you'll lose, for instance, the work of the home and family or something like that. Okay, I want to conclude with people don't often ask an astrologer what her training is or what his training is. And there are a lot of people out there who think that they are astrologers. Now, when you have a chart reading, ask the astrologer, did you do a professional training, and with whom? So in my case, I studied with Demetra George personally in private sessions once a week for 2 years. So I read charts to her and studied ancient astrology before her ancient astrology book came out, once a week, every Tuesday morning for 2 years, so that I read charts to her for 2 years. And she would correct me and make sure that I was interpreting correctly. Now, before that, prior to that, I was an astrologer using not ancient astrology, but the Placidus system for a very long time. So I knew things about planets. I obviously thought I knew about the house systems, but it was all skewed. So most of astrologers are actually teaching from a very skewed location of your ascendant. So they can't actually tell what house your steersman of the ship is in, the ruler of the ascendant. They might tell you something totally wrong. So make sure that the person is doing whole signs astrology, so that they have the moon, if the moon is the steersman of the ship, in the correct house. And then ask them, who did you study with? Did you read charts to that person for 2 years or more? There are universities out there that are 4 years. It doesn't matter so much that they went to astrology university, but are they studied with a master astrologer? And can they read the houses correctly because they're in whole signs? So that should always be a question before you book a session. It doesn't really matter like how long are the sessions and how much do the sessions cost, which people always ask me. I'm amazed that people don't say, well, who did you study with? And what type of astrology do you do? And how long did you study with that master astrologer? Did you read charts to her so that someone made sure that your skills were really perfected? Because what I just showed you in this chart reading, if I had read that wrong, and I was like totally off base with the steersman of your ship, you would be quite influenced by what I said. It may impact your life tremendously. And if I said it wrong, the very vitality of your life force with a Cancer, for instance, with a Cancer ascendant, and where that moon position is, the vitality of your life force is going to be less. Also, there are a lot of sun sign astrologers, and sun signs are really not that relevant. They've only been used for 150 years. And you know, they're relevant actually if you have a Leo ascendant, and that's the ruler of your ascendant. Otherwise, you know, not so much. I mean, not nearly as much as the planet that rules your ascendant. So make sure that your astrologer is professionally trained by a master astrologer, that she read charts to that master astrologer and was corrected for years, and that you're not just getting, you know, an astrology reading by someone who's kind of an intuitive and a poet. Be very careful, folks. So your chart is your soul agreement. And when someone reads it correctly to you, there will be like epiphanies, like, wow, that's exactly it. How did you know that? And you feel so validated. It's not nebulous. When someone can read a chart really well, it's like, whoa, that just activated my soul. You just told the truth of my experience. And that's what you're looking for in a chart reading. So good luck to you all. If you want to have a session with me, you can book through galacticshamanastrologers.net. And you can also study videos there to get yourself a basic understanding of how to read astrology. It will never, you know, like add up after that first 30 videos to you being an astrologer unless you continue your study. And some people are continuing with me by reading charts to me weekly and, you know, taking a couple of friends and read the charts to me. And then if I think they can read the chart to me, I give them a few hints of how to do it, and then they can go and work on it with their friends. And that's the best way to study that I know of at this point, is to really run it by a master astrologer. And Demetra George, my teacher, offers plenty of webinars, as do I, at my YouTube channel, Lalitakaroli. Thanks. Bye-bye.